Well, hey, good morning. Welcome to Mission. Glad that you guys are here with us. I'm thrilled you're here. If I haven't met you, my name is John. And here's what we said last week, and we're going to say it again this week. This is what we believe. This is what I believe to my core. I am, you are, we are made for more. You're made for more. I know I'm made for more. I'm not done. I've not yet hit the finish line. I believe to my core that I am unfinished. And when it comes to you, come on, you're not who you used to be, but you're not who you're going to be either. When it comes to us as a church, we're about to hit our 6th anniversary here in a couple weeks, which is pretty cool, isn't it? To think that we're almost 6 years old as a church. It's very exciting. Those of us clapping, we remember when we were just a few months old, right? So it's a pretty big deal. And we're excited and we're believing that we're not done as a church either. Every single Sunday, all of our volunteers gather in a circle and we say two things. We say, we are mission, and we also say, and we are... We say we are not done. We're not even close to being done. Like, we're just getting warmed up. God has more for us. Listen to these words from the Apostle Paul in Ephesians 3:20. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more. I love this. Immeasurably more. Try to measure it, you can't. Immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according not to our power, no, according to his power that is at work within us. You were made for more. I was made for more. This church was made for more. Last Sunday, I talked about this vision that God has just poured into us. We have this really, really way far out vision. It is like our lifetime legacy vision, right? But we also have this 5-year vision that I shared with you guys last week. And I want to remind us of this 5-year vision. This is what I shared with you guys last week. Here's where God is calling us. That 5 years from now, thousands of people in the 10 are finding and following Christ at our first permanent location. You guys remember this. This was just 7 days ago. I shared with you, we are believing that this is going to happen, that we will see thousands and thousands of people who've been changed by the gospel, who have been totally changed by the grace and mercy of God. I want you to dream about this. I want you to imagine this. Imagine that many people being changed by the grace and mercy of God. And I know this and you know this. Changed people change families. Changed people change streets. Changed people change workplaces. They change teams and schools and dorm rooms and department. Changed people, they change the world. And this is what we are saying because God is saying it to us. Listen, one day is coming and it's out in the future where we will see that many people whose lives have been changed by the gospel. Young families are partnering the light of the church with the heart of their families. So many of you last week stopped and you're like, oh, that's my favorite part. Can you imagine if families were being transformed in this way, where the church and family weren't at odds with each other, but they were actually working together? In fact, 2 weeks from now, we're going to talk even more about that. How about this part? Students from all 4 high schools, there's 4 high schools in the 10. Students from all 4 high schools are choosing Jesus as their adventure. Can you imagine this? Tommy and I, we went to high school here. And let me just tell you, Tommy, he was not choosing Jesus as his adventure, all right? And neither was I. But can you imagine, right? Some of us, you've got teens, right? I mean, can you imagine what would that look like of seeing this happening in the lives of high school students? How about this? Boomers have been unleashed to the front lines of the mission. We believe to our core that as long as you have breath in your lungs, you're not done. That God has more in store for you. And last week I got amped up. I got real fired up and I was talking about retiring in Florida, and I even said Florida was stupid, and you emailed me. Florida isn't stupid. We need to pray for Florida, okay? What I meant by that is if as big as we can dream, if that's about just retiring to play golf, and I love to play golf, is that really as big as we can dream? Is that it? Is that all we got? Or is God inviting us for more? Is he inviting us for more? How about this? Alpha is the talk of the town. Can you imagine in pubs and coffee shops and restaurants throughout the 10, you're just hearing people talking about it. They're talking about this environment where you can ask any question. This environment where you can actually find some answers to your question. This environment where you feel loved. An environment where, yes, there's some good tacos, but there's even more than that. That it's in that environment where we are seeing lives being changed. How about this part? Partners are becoming planters, saturating their neighborhoods and networks with the love of Jesus. And for many, that doesn't move you yet, but it will soon, because you don't quite know what it looks like Actually, this past Tuesday night, we shared this with our partners, and we were able to give a little bit more clarity and detail to what this is going to look like. We'll do this with all of us next Sunday. Partners becoming planters, saturating their neighborhoods and networks with the love of Jesus. There is evidence of a movement of Jesus that is redefining church. Like, we're just seeing it. It's starting to happen. How about this last part? Our dependency on the Spirit got us here. That 5 years from now, when we are seeing these things happen, when you and I are experiencing this in the life of our church, we know who it is that got it done. We don't point to a leader. We don't point to good preaching. We don't point to good music. We don't point to any of that. We're happy with that. That helps, but that's not how it got done. No, we are saying it is because of the power of God. Our dependency, and we're learning how to become more dependent on His Spirit. Our dependency on the Spirit got us here. Now, why would we declare that I am, you are, and we are not only made for more, but asking God for more? Why? This is really important. Why? Why are we declaring this, that we are made for more? And last week I shared with you just 3 words. This is the why, 3 words. You guys remember this? And it's not beat St. Charles. 3 words informs the why. It is the Great Commission. This is why. This is why we are declaring that we were made for more. It is the Great Commission. Check it out, Matthew 18, or 28, verse 18 through 20. Listen, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, Jesus says. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you, and surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. This is the Great Commission. This is the Great Commission, and our question right now is it still great? For some of you, it's the first time you've ever heard it, and so we've been asking, what does it require for the Great Commission to become or remain great in our lives? You remember last week I shared with you 4 things. I want to give us review. I want to go through these 4, and we're going to add a 5th today. If you were with us last week, you'll remember this. What does it require for the Great Commission to become or remain great? Number 1, it requires power. Your power or His power? His power. We cannot do this in our own strength. It requires His power. Number 2, it requires effort. Just a minute ago, I love what Tony did. Do you guys remember this? He had us open our hands. He's saying we don't take communion, we receive communion. And at the same time, we receive communion, and at the same time, we are released for you and I to demonstrate great effort with Jesus. It requires old-fashioned grit, staying power, long obedience in the same direction. We said this last week. We can't do it without Him. He won't do it without us. This is the great collaborative mission between us and God. The Great Commission requires the power of God and the perspiration of God's people. Do you remember this last week? I was saying, are you sweating for Jesus? We had fun with that. It requires effort. At the same time, it requires team. Teamwork makes the dream work. It's about the body of Christ. It's about the body of Christ. It's about all of us showing up together. It's us understanding that for the Great Commission to become or remain great, it takes all of us showing up. It requires team, and at the same time, number 4, it requires the sacrifice of self. It requires the sacrifice of self. All the great heroes of our faith, they made little of themselves and much of Christ. I said last week, go ahead on your way home, Google the feet of Mother Teresa. A buddy of mine, Dave, did, and he sent me this picture. He's like, man, I had no idea. Like, when we study and understand the heroes of our faith, this is what we see: the sacrifice of self. This is all review. This leads us to the new thing I want us to talk about for the remainder of our time. The 5th thing, if we're understanding or asking the question, what does it require for the Great Commission to become or remain great? It's number 5, it requires preparation. Write this down. It requires preparation. If you're in the church app, you can follow along there. It requires, say it with me, it requires preparation. Now, I want us to think about all the things that we prepare for. Show of hands, how many of you remember when you got your driver's license? For some of us, it was a little while ago, right? I was old for my class, and so I remember the amount that I prepared for this because all my buddies were banking on me passing this, right? So that we could have freedom. Like, John, no pressure, but yes, actually tons of pressure. Our fun and freedom depends on you passing this test. You guys remember this? And so we prepared, right? We prepared to pass that test. Some of you right now, high school students, you're preparing as we speak. How about to get that part in the musical? Some of you are in the arts or were in the arts. You prepared. How about before your first child? Show of hands, how many of you guys remember this? You remember this. Now, my oldest daughter, her name is Hannah, and on Friday she turned 8 years old. Thank you. Someone's really happy, but I'm happy too. It's a really good thing. But I was remembering back to what our life was like before Hannah was born, our first child. The amount of preparation. Okay, second child, little preparation, and I've been told third child, zero. You just don't even care anymore, right? But for Hannah, our first child, we were so afraid. We were terrified, and so Kelly got us enrolled in every single preparation class at the hospital. I mean, you name it, we were there. I'm like, I could teach these classes, Kelly. Like, we are so prepared. Why? Because you don't want to break them, right? And you remember that moment when they're there and they're actually good and everything's good, and then they say you can go home with them. You remember that moment you're walking out of the hospital like, this is unbelievable. I'm absolutely going to screw this child up, right? But in that moment, we're like, no, we prepared for this. We prepared for this. How about getting the right score on the ACT test? No, you prepare for that. You freak out, but you also prepare for that. Before the wedding, a bunch of people in our church, I see a couple right now, I got an email, I think this morning, wanting to know, like, what do we got to do before the wedding? Right? We prepare for that. How about Disney vacations? You take out a loan, but then secondly, right? You prepare, like big time, you prepare for that. How about this last one? Your fantasy football draft. Like, how do you know? Dude, 5 mock drafts, really? I mean, that's a little obsessive, right? We prepare for all these different things. I want you to think about it. Think about it. The first child, driver's license, musicals, ACTs, weddings, Disney, fantasy football. Like, why? And here's the deal. You prepare for what's important. It's that simple. You prepare for what's important. Think about how much we prepare for all these things, yet, when it comes to the Great Commission, becoming or remaining great, how much have we been preparing for that? Really? When it comes to you living the life that we were actually called and created to live, how much have I and you and we, how much have we been preparing for this? And this is what we see in the life of the disciples. We've been in the book of Mark. We'll get back in it here in a few weeks. But we've been studying this gospel since February. And in the Gospels, we see a lot of really important things, one of the most of which I think is seeing the amount of preparation. Like, did Jesus spend 3 months with them? No, he spent 3 years with them. Think about it. Before he called them to fulfill this purpose, he enlisted them into a life in 3 years of preparation. Long before the disciples were meant to fulfill their purpose, they were invited into a season of preparation. This past May, I did my annual trip to Quetico, and I love talking about it. It's a week of adventure and no showering. It's just a wonderful time up in the wilderness. And us guys were there, and we like to bring a book, and this year Blake Williams brought this book. It's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. And in this book, we learned something that was the biggest takeaway of our entire week this year. The biggest thing that we learned, it was this: under pressure, because outside these doors, the Great Commission is awaiting us. Under pressure, under challenge, or under difficulty, and that is what is awaiting us. The quote was, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, no, you plummet to the level of your preparation. And I want you to do an audit on your life right now. When it comes to being a disciple and a disciple maker, how often are the areas and the times that we're falling short? It's because we're not rising to the occasion because we don't. No, we actually plummet to the level of our preparation. I love this quote from Abe Lincoln. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And God has given us a significant vision, and it is to fulfill the Great Commission, but that means it requires preparation. So here's what I want to do with the time remaining. I want to talk to you about what we call our growth track. Our growth track. 3 things we got to be clear on when it comes to our growth track. Here's the first one. The growth track is how we prepare for the Great Commission. The growth track is pointed towards helping launch us towards the Great Commission. We gotta view this through this lens. It is through the lens of commissioning. The growth track is how we prepare for the Great Commission. There's 4 key parts that we're going to talk more about this in the coming weeks, but we have to view this through the lens of commissioning. Number 2, the growth track is for anyone. It's for anyone. You don't have to be a super Christian to begin or be part of the growth track. In fact, you don't even have to be a Christian to begin the growth track. We have Alpha to help kickstart this preparation for the Great Commission. Our second step in the growth track, we have a little video to describe it. It's a new thing. We didn't have this in the winter. We want to go ahead and take a look at this right now.
You are here. You gather on Sundays, and let's face it, you actually enjoy it a little. Or a lot. It's okay. You can admit it. We do too. And like you, each week we experience that jolt of inspiration, make a meaningful connection or two, and get a sense of what this church is all about. Gathering at Mission can be inspiring, but partnering with Mission is transforming. At Mission, we exist to help people find and follow Christ. This is what you have begun to experience, and it is our hope that this is what you will continue to partner with. By taking a step to grow in partnership through formation, you will discover God's plan for the church, our opportunity when we partner together, and your invitation to be part of it.
The growth track is for anyone. Last week, this is cool, 200 people took the growth assessment. 200 of you sitting right in this service, you took the growth assessment. We want you to know if this is your first time ever to church or if this is your first time to this church, the growth track is for you. The third thing I want us to know, the growth track is for anyone, but not for everyone in every season. If you're with us in the winter, we talked really passionate about getting on the growth track, get on the growth track, and so many did. But a bunch of people got on the growth track that weren't quite ready to actually work the growth track. And so what we want to be clear on, the growth track is for anyone, but not for everyone in every season. To know if it's for you, I want you to ask this question. Are you available to commit 12 weeks to this, October through December? If you're traveling on business for like half of those weeks, it's not for you this season. If you've got just tons of things going on that have just become or are super important, it's not for you this season. What I don't want you to feel for me or us is this like heavy, you have to be in the growth track. If you're not on the growth track, something's really wrong with you. That's not what we're trying to do here. But if you're ready to grow in a very intentional way, if you're ready to say, you know what, I want the Great Commission to become or remain great in my life, then I would challenge you, as I'm challenging me, to make this a priority. To say, you know what, we will make time for things that are super important for us. And so for some, or maybe you're traveling or something's going on in your family, it may not be this season, but I think for most of us, we can make it this season. We can say, you know what, we're going to commit to this. Last winter in our first growth track, some went through it and some gave like a half-hearted effort. And they're like, John, it just wasn't that good. And here's what I know, what you get out of it is what you put into it. And so what would it look like for me? Like I'm part of this too, and for us to say we're gonna actually really put our heart into this thing. We're actually gonna see every single week as a moment where I'm being prepared for something. And when it comes to challenges, whether it's through Alpha or all the way through Life Plan, we're gonna do all of those things because it's for a purpose. It's preparing us. It's preparing you for the Great Commission. Right now, what we wanna do is for you to take out your phone to take the growth assessment. If you have not taken the growth assessment, we're gonna create a couple of minutes for you to do that. You can take out your phone right now on the Mission app. You can take the growth assessment right on the app. For the 200 of you that already took it, you received an email with a link in there. And so what you can do right now as you take out your phone is you can actually click that link to get registered for the growth track. We want to create a couple minutes for you to do this. We know what happens on the other side of these doors. Craziness begins. So we want to create a couple minutes for us to do this. Let me pray. God, thank you for what you're doing in our church. God, thank you for the plans that you have to use the growth track to prepare us for the Great Commission. God, I ask that you would help us in extraordinary ways, that you would use these next 12 weeks, beginning here in a couple weeks, to do something significant. We were made for more. And so God, may we prepare and may we believe that each step of this journey on the growth track, it is aiming us to fulfill the Great Commission. We ask this, Jesus, in your name. Amen.